There is never a reason to not seek to find your tribe. A few years back, there was a moment where I felt like I had to detach myself from the people around me because they weren't doing good. They were living a lifestyle. I kept living with them for quite some years, but couldn't take it anymore as I got to see the negative side. So I had the choice. Either I let them go or I tried to find a way to cope with it. You may come to a conclusion that there's some intentions from those people that do not match with you, and especially not in a way where you could maybe grow from it or feel like you carry this deep connection. You're merely hanging around because there's nothing better to do. And I was sick of that. I was sick of the lifestyle. I was sick of doing drugs, and I was more sick of pretending to like all this and having it and taking it as something that's just fine. So once I stepped back and got out of these circles, I finally got to see how growth is to be recognized from deep within. Because all of a sudden my compass was pointing into different directions. It wasn't merely focused on trying to fit time with an unconscious excuse to not work on myself by hanging around with people trying to do things that seem so good for us because we want this lifestyle or we want to be together, we want to be understood. The motivation of being understood and having this drive to, and also this need to be recognized is important. We have to be seen to feel fulfilled. And with this choice I made back then, I chose not to be seen. And you hear people online talking about how you should lock in and get your stuff rolling in like the next, how to change your life in half a year. And get off those habits you might be going after. And there's a lot of truth in the fact that you need to distance yourself from a lifestyle and habits that diminishes the returns of you actually getting work done. But you easily tend to forget as well and calibrate your success based on things that are not intrinsically motivated, but rather put on you because you're now desperately trying to fix something that you weren't able to do before. Even though you try to move ahead, even though you want to get successful in whatever field you're in, even though you want to find yourself, you shall not forget that we want to be understood. If my younger self back then, trying to get off this bad lifestyle, would have seen that years later, trying to hyper optimize his lifestyle, trying so desperately to find his calling, would have known that just by letting everyone aside and hustling his ass off would give him the biggest isolation he could have never thought of before. I would have told him to get his shit together and keep off that unhealthy lifestyle, but as fast as he could get out of it, he should have searched for some place and some meaning and connection between people and him. And he didn't do it. He went too hard. He went way too hard down a rabbit hole of trying to be the greatest without having the base, without carrying what makes life worth showing up every day, which is the connection. And fast forward, almost 2 years ago, he felt the need to get his message out. He felt this desperate need to show the world where his mind is going. And at that point, he just sat down and tapped a button on a camera and talked his world out. And it felt great. It felt relieving. It felt connecting, even though there was no one. There was no one sitting in front of him. It was a black hole he looked into, but it gave him meaning. It gave him meaning to show up, and it gave him connection because people started to resonate with it. And even though he sometimes wasn't surrounding himself with friends for weeks, he still tried and showed up and felt the warmth of life by showing up and talking and getting to the nuance of what he had been carrying in his mind. And as he was searching for it for years, he got stressed. He got very stressed about the fact that even though he'd gone through such deep pain, isolation, and trying desperately, showing up every day and every hour of his waking day to try to get the answers and find a way to actually let himself get free and make a sustainable business by whatever he's interested in, he still didn't make it. And on the other hand, he still had no one around him. But he had visions. He had a lot of deep visions within himself that kept popping up. He still didn't change the thing that could have calibrated and balanced all those years and all those tears, which is to have those people around you that might carry the same depth, the same energy as he has. But he couldn't find them. Where should he search them for? Where should he look? He didn't know. So he didn't do. He didn't give himself free time to seek, to explore. Others flew around the world, and he was sitting at home each and every day, having a routine set, going to bed at 8:30 p.m., waking up at 4:30 a.m., working 14 hours each day, trying to find it, trying to build it, making no money with it, hustling another job, trying harder. There's something missing. You shall not forget to think about who's around you. And just by thinking through who you surround yourself with, or not, because you lived in such an hyper-optimization as I did and isolated yourself for years, you get to find out a lot about what amount of growth yourself is missing out on, just because of the fact you are not surrounding yourself with inspiration that might lead your way into a complete different space. Because looking back to all those years, spending like 5% of my year with people, having actually meaningful days with them, exploring, experiencing, having fun, feeling life, I can say I was always the most inspired when I got to people with abstract thought processes, with things that just made them spark up, with having them around me, and even though they might not have answers, just be with them. The biggest problem of all that is the less you connect and seek for this connection, the more you get stuck in the isolation, and all of a sudden it just feels okay to not go out there. And this is dangerous. This is very, very dangerous. There's no reason for me not to be seen in this world. There's no reason for me not to be understood. not to be found, not to be connected with others. But if I keep circling in this same spot and thinking I can only get forward if I lock myself up, and so desperately try to figure it out of selfishness towards my goals or the hardship of doing a normal job, I'll miss out on the biggest meaning of life, which is to be around others. We want to feel and we want to be connected, but we lose out on the ability to do so if we keep in. We have to get out. We have to get to places. And even though it's uncomfortable, we shall do it no matter what. And you can't tell me another reason to not do it, because you are worth it. Get out that door, talk to some stranger, look at some people, give them a grin. Don't forget about the spark you might get by talking to this one person you keep avoiding, because it would be weird. It's good to be back. Even though it was hard for me, it was tough to sit here. And I fucked up many times, and still I did it. I told you what was on my heart. Take care.